Hello, my name is Mateta, and welcome to the FPL Scope and the weekly wildcard draft for Game Week 23, where I'm going to try to select what I think is the best squad to have in Fantasy Premier League going forward in the next few game weeks. And also, got to keep in mind that this is a weekly wildcard draft, so I'm assuming that you're using your wildcard chip now and you won't have the wildcard chip in the future. So that will also affect how you do your tactics, how you do your chip strategy. So you have to keep that in mind. So this is not potentially like the ideal squad to have currently if you have a different chip strategy, but if you are looking to free hit in Game Week 29, which is basically what I'm trying to make here, a squad that is able to free hit in 29, then this is the squad I think is the best for you. So yeah, it will be kind of informational even if you are not on a wildcard, because it will tell you something about the best players to have currently in FPL. And I'm going to do that in terms of, like I always do, present it to you with the style of an NBA or NFL type of draft, where I select players from 1 through 15 to make it into my squad. And the first pick is going to be the player that I think is the most important player to have currently in FPL. And the 15th pick is going to be the player that is the most expendable in the squad currently, basically. So yeah, as always, let's go into the team, basically, and the number one pick, which is going to be Mohamed Salah. As always, he has blanked twice in a row now, ever since I pledged that I was going to captain him every single game week, no matter what, going forward. He has blanked twice in a row, sadly, for me. But that has been two pretty tough games for Liverpool. One against Nottingham Forest, which is one of the best defensive teams in the league. And then the other was against the Brentford team that was really like super low block and made it really tough for Liverpool for most of that game. So yeah, I don't think that will continue, especially with the fixtures that they have now. Ipswich on the back of 6-0 loss to Man City. I think that will be a much more open game for Salah to do well in. And then in the next game week after that, it's a double game week where Salah is going to be the prime triple captaincy candidate. But I know people are sort of a bit hesitant now to potentially triple captain him in that game week, seeing as it is Bournemouth away and Everton away. Bournemouth have looked really good lately. They beat Newcastle 4-1. Everton beat Spurs, which isn't really the biggest feat currently, seeing as Spurs are pretty bad. But I think under David Moyes, they've looked a bit better offensively, at least. Defensively, they have conceded quite a few goals the last few game weeks, but they still have pretty decent defensive numbers. So I do get it if you're sort of hesitant on using the triple captaincy on Salah, but I think with all the other chips that we have and all the other, like the lack of other double game weeks to use it in, I think it's still the best option to use it in that double game week. So I think Salah is pretty damn important to have. Actually, the most important. He's number one still. Even after the double game week, he has Wolves at home, which is also a really nice game. Man City away, I don't think it's that tough of a game for Liverpool and Salah. Salah has been good against City in the past, even when Man City were actually really good. And I still think Man City are pretty bad defensively, and they have sort of turned a corner now, especially offensively. But I still think that will be a game where Liverpool will be favorites, even though it is at the Etihad. But yeah, so really good games for Salah in the next few game weeks, and the double game week is making him the most essential player to have currently in FPL, and that's why he's number one, basically, as always, because yeah, Salah is still amazing. He's still on pace to have a record-breaking season, even though he's been slowed down a bit lately, but I think he's going to get back into it pretty soon. He has been creating chances and getting chances as well in these two games where he has blanked, so there's still nothing wrong with the production for Salah in terms of getting chances and making chances. It's just about scoring them. But he scored now again in the Champions League, almost scored the second one as well, so he's still as lethal as ever. He's the greatest FPL player of all time, so he should definitely be in your squad still, and no thinking about selling him just yet. But maybe after the three next game weeks, you could potentially look into some other options, but I don't think so. I think Salah's going to be here for the end of the season as well, because he is that good. Number two, we have Alexander Isak. He has jumped up from number 3 since last time, because he just, yeah, is still looking pretty good. He did blank finally now against Bournemouth in that 4-1 loss at home, which is kind of worrying. You also see the fixtures aren't the best, but at the same time, I don't think the fixtures are that bad for Newcastle either, because they are such a good team. Obviously, the next fixture against Southampton is the best you can hope for, basically. Southampton are still a really bad team, so you definitely want as many Newcastle players as you can for that game. But after that, Fulham at home, City away, Nottingham Forest at home. I think both Fulham and Nottingham Forest are at home at least, so that is a plus for Newcastle, who are usually much better at home than away, even though they lost 4-1 to Bournemouth just now. But those are two pretty tough teams in Fulham and Nottingham Forest, so maybe it's not ideal to have like a double up, especially on Newcastle players. But Isak has been so consistent and so good all season. He's the best striker in the game currently, especially for the price that he is compared to Haaland. So I still think he's pretty much a no-brainer, especially for that Southampton fixture. But he might drop down a bit in the rankings in the next upcoming weeks. But I think in general, Newcastle are going to be a good team for basically the rest of the season. I think like the final 4 game weeks, you might have a different idea, because yeah, it depends again who's going to double in Game Week 36. But I think like Game Week 35, 36, 37, 38, Newcastle don't have the best fixtures, but before that, apart from like this pretty tough stretch now with Man City, Nottingham Forest, and I think Arsenal after that game again, apart from that stretch of 3 pretty tough games, which still I think Isak could score in against City and Nottingham Forest. Besides that, they have really, really good fixtures both before and after the blank in Game Week 29, and for most of the season until like the very end. So yeah, I think Newcastle players are still going to be really viable, as you'll see with this draft. So yeah, Isak at number 2. Number 3, we have Cole Palmer, who also has sort of been a bit down on his luck when it comes to points lately. He has looked a bit worse as well. He's also struggled a bit with some slight injuries. I think that's sort of making a difference with him. Also, the team has changed a bit. We've seen in the past, back when Enzo Fernandez was like the hot new thing in FPL, that was basically down to him playing more attackingly and Palmer sort of dropping down a bit deeper. Sometimes letting Enzo be the most forward player out of the two, basically. Now we saw also Keenan Lewis-Hall come on in the last game and play more attacking football, and then Palmer being sort of more like a distributor type of guy in midfield. So there are some worrying signs with Palmer, but at the same time, he's still amazing. He's still the penalty taker. He is still very much involved. He can score from anywhere in terms of free kicks, penalties, open play. He's still a fantastic player to have. He takes some set pieces as well. In terms of corners and stuff. So I still think Palmer is really good value, but he's dropped down to number 3 because he hasn't really been as good as we've expected previously in the season. But yeah, he's still fantastic. I think Man City away is not the worst fixture for an attacking player. I'll be very interested to see that game actually, because Chelsea have struggled a bit lately and City have looked a bit better lately. And you would normally expect City to beat Chelsea like they did in the opening round this season, but yeah, that will be a very interesting game, but I think Palmer still has a decent chance of getting points returns in that game. And then West Ham at home after that. That's, again, one of the best fixtures that you can have. I probably should have it marked as dark blue as like the easiest fixture to have, because West Ham are really bad defensively. But at the same time, also got a new manager in Potter who might get things going by that point as well. But yeah, that's a fantastic fixture. Brighton away and Villa away are two like middling, not so good potentially fixtures, but at the same time, Palmer can score against anyone, and we know what he did against Brighton last time. That was 4 goals in a half. So yeah, why not happen again? So yeah, Palmer's still a fantastic pick, but he is sort of someone you have to like at least keep tabs on, because eventually once Saka gets back in, like that's still quite a few game weeks away. I think that's around like game week 30, 31 potentially. At that point, maybe Saka will be a better option than Palmer, but for now, he still has decent fixtures, even after these 4 games, and he's also still a really, really good FPL player that you should still keep in your team, so he's number 3 for that reason. Number 4, we have Trent Alexander-Arnold, and he is marked with the green font on his name, which means that he's a new player since last time. Last time I did prefer Konate because he was cheaper, but now I pretty much changed my tune on that. Trent got an assist last game and a clean sheet, 11 points. He looks really good. He looks more nailed than what we feared initially once he had that really bad game against Man United. There were some thoughts that maybe he will be dropped for Bradley. Wasn't quite sure about him starting, but now it seems pretty certain that he's going to start in the most important league games. He was rested now in the Champions League, played only 4 minutes in that game, and I think he'll be back, or pretty certain he'll be back against Ipswich and play both games against Bournemouth and Everton. So I think he seems like a secure player to have for Liverpool in terms of starting every game. And seeing as he has that much attacking threat and is such a good FPL asset in general, I just have to have him in the team, and I think he's a pretty important player to have. I think he's the second best Liverpool option apart from Salah. Not by too much, because I have another Liverpool player coming up in this draft that I think is really good as well. But I think he's like the most secure in terms of minutes, in terms of production, in terms of what we know from him in the past. I think he's a really good player, and he could have that monster double game week score where he has 2 clean sheets and a goal or an assist or something like that and gets like 25 points. That could happen with Trent, and that's not something you can say about any other defender in the game. So yeah, he comes in at number 4. Number 5, we still have Anthony Gordon. He is looking pretty good. Some people are thinking about potentially selling him, but like I said, with the Isak stuff there, they have really good matches in general. If you look from perspective of Game Week 23 all the way through like Game Week 34, they have really good fixtures in general. So I still think he's a pretty good hold, and I wouldn't put it past him to score against Fulham, Man City, or Nottingham Forest for that matter in these games. That could very well suit him as well. Especially the Man City game, I could see him on the counterattack do really well. So I would not sell him in the next few game weeks. I'm even considering, since I don't have him in my own squad, I'm even considering buying him in for this game week to afford a different player in this draft as well, to be fair. But I still think he's a good option. He's been so good this whole season. Newcastle are still one of the best teams in the league, even though they were sort of demolished by Bournemouth. But that can happen sometimes. Like, Bournemouth are a really good team. They are one of the top teams in the league. And their different type of tactic of playing like a super pressing style can sort of make other teams confused and lead to results like that we saw with Newcastle against Bournemouth. So I think it's like more of a one-off than like an indictment of how good Newcastle are. I still think Newcastle are a really, really good team. And I think Gordon is one of the most vital players for Newcastle as well, taking some set pieces as well when Trippier doesn't play. So yeah, Gordon is still a fantastic pick, especially for this Southampton game. But after that Southampton game is passed, he's probably going to drop down in the rankings, if not drop out of the team. But I'll make an assessment of that next week when he's past the Southampton game, basically. But for now, I still think he's a really good pick, someone that I am considering picking up myself in my own FPL team. I wish I had picked him up way earlier when he had those good fixtures and everything was looking good. I don't know why I sort of overlooked that, but I guess I can always resort to the excuse that I broke my arm and I couldn't really pay attention and stuff. But yeah, Gordon should have been in my team a long time ago, but I still think he's a viable option to have, even though the fixtures are drying up a bit lately, or going to dry up now eventually. Number 6, we have Cody Gakpo. He is the player that I am considering bringing in as well as my striker, and I need extra money for that, so I would sell Bruno Fernandes to get Gordon to fund the Gakpo move, basically, because I think Gakpo is looking really good in terms of minutes for Liverpool. He plays every game. He starts pretty much every single game, and now that Diogo Jota is also a doubt for especially the Ipswich game, but also the double game week, I think Gakpo is going to play all 3 fixtures. I think he is the attacker that has the best chance of playing all 3 fixtures. There is Luis Diaz, there is Darwin Núñez, but I think Gakpo now, especially seeing as he got rested in the Champions League, I think he has a good chance of playing all 3 matches. So with that in mind, I think he also has really high upside. He's one of those players that could be like the double game week gem. We always get that every single season. There's one player or two, like Mateta last season, just comes out of nowhere and gets like 20 plus points. And it's a huge plus for anyone that brought him in. And I think Gakpo could be one of those players, especially with the minutes that he has. I prefer more Luis Diaz for that reason. I think the minutes are better. He usually plays more and longer than Luis Diaz does. And he also plays really well in his position as well. Even though Luis Diaz is sort of playing more the striker and Gakpo is playing more as the winger, basically, which is opposite of their FPL positions, I still think Gakpo has shown that he is a pretty good player when it comes to scoring goals as well. He scored a lot of important goals for Liverpool, so I could see that happening as well in these next few game weeks. So yeah, I quite like the fixtures for Liverpool in general from an attacking sense. I think Gakpo is a pretty solid starter alongside Salah. And I think Liverpool also, even though they have been sort of struggling a bit more than usual lately, they still have fantastic underlying numbers and are still going to be the best team in the Premier League probably this season. They are the team to beat, and I don't think they will let up when it comes to winning the Premier League as well. So doubling up seems like a really good idea in the attack, and tripling up in general seems like a really good idea when it comes to the double game week, especially for Liverpool. And the fixtures before and after the double game week is also fantastic in terms of Ipswich at home and Wolves at home, especially for an attacker like Gakpo. So yeah, I think he's a really good pick. He comes in on number 6 for that reason, and he's someone that I'm seriously considering bringing into my own team, despite him blanking the last 2 game weeks. So yeah, Gakpo is a really good pick. Number 7, if we can get to number 7, let's see, there we go. Mateta, the other striker that we have in the team, is Jean-Philippe Mateta, who's been absolutely fantastic the last few game weeks. I have stayed away from bringing him in because I already had Ismail Sarr, but that was a huge mistake. Sarr has been terrible. Mateta has been amazing because Mateta is amazing. This is what he did last season as well. This is why he's been in the weekly Wildcard draft for me for the last couple of game weeks, because I think he is just a really good striker when he gets faith put into him up front, and Crystal Palace are playing as like a really good team, which they are at the moment. They had no problems beating West Ham 2-0. Mateta scoring the goals there as well, being fantastic as he usually is against West Ham. I mentioned that 29-point haul he had last season in the double game week. That was also against West Ham, where he scored a lot of goals in that game. So you could easily see him score in that game, which he did. Now he has Brentford at home, which is a nice fixture. Man United, who are currently really, really struggling. Everton at home, which is a bit more open now that Moyes has come back, and that's a really good fixture for them as well at home. Like the next 3 fixtures are really good. Fulham away is a pretty tough fixture, but Mateta has been fantastic, and he's one of the most informed players in the league right now. And we saw that last season, how good he can be when he is in form, and I think he's going to just continue scoring and scoring and scoring. So yeah, pretty nice pick to have there at number 7 in this draft for me. Number 8, we have Lewis Hall, still another Newcastle player, still have the triple Newcastle lineup here with the Southampton game especially in mind. And like I said, with both Gordon and Isak, they have really good fixtures for like the next 10 game weeks. which is what you should look at in terms of planning ahead, because Game Week 33, which is 10 game weeks away now, is going to be a double game week where we most likely will see Newcastle have a double, assuming they beat Arsenal in the second leg of the Carabao Cup semi-finals. So yeah, I think triple Newcastle is still very viable, and they might also even get to play in Game Week 29 and then have a double in 33. I watched like the latest Planet FPL pod, and what is it, James from that pod said that is a possibility as well. So yeah, even with this tactic in this team, which I said at the beginning of the video would be free hit 29, it's always nice to have that potential option to have Newcastle players playing in Game Week 29 and potentially not use the free hit and save it for later. If that happens, that would be a really huge plus if that could happen as well. So yeah, I quite like Gordon, Hall, and Isak to just hold them for the longest time, because I think, like I said, the long-term fixtures for Newcastle are pretty good, and especially with the Southampton game in mind, it's a no-brainer to have 3 Newcastle players still, in my opinion. So yeah, Hall is someone you can easily bench in the tougher matches against Man City, for example. You can easily bench him and play one of the other really good defenders that we have in this team, as we'll get to. So yeah, I think Hall is a really good player to have, and he's been fantastic, and especially if you have value in him. If you bought him at like 4.4 and now he's like 5.1, I think, then definitely you should keep him and not sell him and bring him back potentially for the double game week in 33. Just keep him until game week 33, which is going to be most likely a double game week for Newcastle. So yeah, I think he's still a really good pick to have. So he comes in at number 8. Number 9, we have Kerkez. I did mention some players have better fixtures in that game week for Newcastle play against Man City, and Kerkez is one of them. He plays Southampton away, which is fantastic for him. He can step in for Hall. Could even play him against Nottingham Forest at home this week. Liverpool at home, you should probably leave him out of the team, but we've seen Kerkez in the past be able to score against the better teams in the league. He's been so good this season. He could also potentially, we could have the thing where he gets transferred. I don't think this will happen, but you could have the potential that he gets transferred to Liverpool after you've gotten him into the team now and you have triple Liverpool already. You could potentially have 4 Liverpool players in the double game week for them. So that would be absolutely amazing if that happens, whether that's Kerkez or Robinson, who we'll also get to eventually in this video. That is a possibility, actually, seeing as we are in the January window and we do have a double game week coming up now. That could happen, but even if he stays with Bournemouth, that's still a fantastic team, as we've seen. I don't think they're going to sell him because they've been so good this season. Kerkez has been so good this season as well, playing super attacking football and scoring goals. Even when they do concede against Newcastle, he managed to score and get some points anyway. He's just been a machine this season, and especially lately in FPL, he's been absolutely fantastic. So yeah, he had to come into the squad. And also with Bournemouth, they are also one of those teams that could potentially not blank in Game Week 29 and still double in Game Week 33, which would be absolutely amazing for especially if you're using a wildcard now. That would be absolutely amazing. So that's another reason why we have to consider Bournemouth players, because they also have really good fixtures, especially from the Southampton fixture onwards. The fixtures for like the next 10 game weeks after that is just brilliant for Bournemouth. So yeah, I think Bournemouth players will be really popular pretty soon. So if you're wildcarding now, you might as well just get ahead of the curve and get Kerkez now, and potentially other Bournemouth players as well. And even then, like the Nottingham Forest at home fixture isn't the worst. We've just seen Bournemouth beat an informed team in Newcastle quite handedly, and could also see the same against Nottingham Forest. That will be an interesting game as well. I think this next game week is going to be pretty interesting, both in terms of Chelsea against Man City and in terms of Bournemouth against Nottingham Forest. 2 really interesting fixtures there, I think, in general. But for the long haul, Kerkez is going to be fantastic. You don't have to play him every single week. You can see Trent and Hall playing in the next 2 game weeks. We have another double game week player coming up at the end of the bench in this defense as well for that double game week where Kerkez plays Liverpool. So you probably want to bench him that game week anyway, because you have so many other options. So yeah, don't worry too much about the 2 next fixtures for Kerkez. I think they're both decent, or at least in terms of when you need to play him or not. And then after that, he has fantastic fixtures. So yeah, he could easily be higher up in the standings there as well in terms of the drafts. But yeah, he's a pretty important player to have currently in FPL, in my opinion, as well. It comes in at number 9. Number 10, we have Daniel Muñoz, who's kept 2 clean sheets in a row. The attacking returns we're still waiting for, but he's still so attacking. He's still playing for a team that haven't conceded that many goals at all since they sort of found themselves midway through the season now. They're in much better form. They still have good fixtures. Even Fulham and Man United are fixtures where they can keep a clean sheet potentially. Brentford at home, Everton at home, still decent fixtures for Muñoz, who can score. And I think that goal or assist will come at some point eventually. But yeah, sort of starting to lose a bit faith in that, because he just keeps playing and not scoring, but he has kept clean sheets now, which is also really nice. So a lot of different route to points. I think defenders in general are really strong currently. I have 5 defenders that I really like in this squad, but there are a couple other defenders that are also worth mentioning and considering in this team. So yeah, I think Muñoz makes it in, but there are a lot of good alternatives if you don't really like Muñoz for some reason. But yeah, I think Muñoz will come good eventually. It's going to be an interesting player, and also seeing as we are going to free hit in 29 most likely with this team, having Crystal Palace players that most likely blank in that game week isn't a problem, because you could just free hit and bring in a lot of City players, for example, a lot of Man United players for that game week. I think it might be the best tactic to free hit in Game Week 29. But if you want to see more about the chip strategies, potential chip strategies, you can look out for the last video that I posted on this channel, where I went through the managers of the week from the past few game weeks in my mini league, and I went through their future and what the best chip strategy is for them. So I think that will be actually a pretty important or informative video at least. Nothing that I make is important really, but it will be an informative video at least for you if you are considering what chip strategies to use in the future. So yeah, keep that in mind and watch that video if you haven't already. So yeah, but Muñoz on number 10, still really like him, but he has to produce something offensively soon, because otherwise I'm going to lose hope pretty much. Number 11, we have Morgan Rogers, and I've come to the sad realization that after these next 3 game weeks, West Ham at home, Wolves away, Ipswich at home, which are fantastic fixtures, even Chelsea at home isn't the worst for an attacking player. I think after these 4 game weeks, I'm most likely going to have to get rid of Rogers. Aston Villa have a pretty tough end to the season. They're going to be back in the Champions League now, or they are back in the Champions League. They played against Monaco and lost. They're going to have more fixtures coming up, more matches to worry about. I think for the long term, Aston Villa aren't the best, but for now, Rogers, as a final hurrah, he's going to have the last 3 game weeks now, or the next 3 or 4 game weeks now, to basically cap a really good season in FPL in general. I've been such a huge fan of Rogers. I know other people have different experiences with him. They've mostly benched him for his high scores. For me, I've been using him whenever he's had high scores, and I've benched him when he's had pretty low scores. So yeah, I just have a lot of affinity towards Rogers. He was one of the first players that I identified at the start of the season as someone that could potentially break out, and he has. He's been fantastic, even better than I expected as well. So yeah, just a huge fan of Rogers, but it is sort of coming towards the end for him in FPL. He is still my last remaining Game Week 1 representative from my team, in my own team, but eventually I'm probably going to have to sell him in my team, and I'm sad about that. But for now, we're going to celebrate Rogers with the new next 2 fixtures, which are really, really good. You should start him in all 3, especially the next 3 game weeks, potentially even the Chelsea fixture as well. So yeah, Rogers is still really good for the immediate future, but for long-term future, probably going to have to let go of him, sadly. But yeah, he's been absolutely fantastic and deserves a good send-off, basically, in the next few game weeks. So he should still be in your team if you're wildcarding today, in my opinion. Number 12, we have Mykolenko, who has the double game week in game week 24, which is the huge selling point here. This is where you can bench Kerkez against Liverpool and just play Mykolenko against both Liverpool and Leicester in that same game week. The Leicester game especially is looking really good there. Mykolenko is also really cheap. He's also someone that can provide clean sheets from unexpected places, basically. He's done that in the team for me lots of times this season, more often than not on the bench, but still he provides the goods and has been really good. I think Everton are just a really good team in general. I don't think the goals that they conceded lately under Moyes, I don't think it's like necessarily indicative of what's going to happen in the future, because they have had still pretty good underlying numbers and they've had some pretty tough matches as well. So I think Mykolenko is a really good player to have, especially at the end of your bench when you have so many other good defensive players to have. You want to bench him most weeks anyway, but just in case you need him, in case of injuries, in case of something else that pops up, or bad matchups for other defenders and stuff like that, he is someone you can easily spot start and hopefully get some points from as well. The attacking returns haven't really come from Mykolenko this season, but we saw last season that he has that in him as well. He can score goals and get attacking returns as well. So that might also be something that happens in the future now with David Moyes coming in and them playing a bit more expansive and more offensive football than they did under Sean Dyche. So yeah, Mykolenko, really nice option to have, especially for the double game week. After that, maybe not as essential, but he's still a really good player to have. So yeah, he comes in at number 12. Number 13, we have Pickford as well in goal. We've doubled up on the Everton defensive players, especially for the double game week. That is the main selling point. After that, probably going to let Pickford and Mykolenko go out of the team for the wildcard draft. But for now, with the double coming up, I think Pickford is still a fantastic goalkeeper to have. He is the second highest second highest scoring goalkeeper in FPL so far this season, and he just keeps getting points from unexpected places. He gets a lot of saves. We know he can save a penalty or two as well from the past. And Everton are just that type of team. Even with David Moyes, like I said, I think they will be pretty solid defensively with Branthwaite in the side as well. So yeah, Pickford is my favorite goalkeeper at the moment, but at the same time, not really too fussed about goalkeepers. I don't think there's like any like super standout goalkeepers. Sells has been fantastic all season. He's the one that has been dropped for Pickford in this instance because they have tougher fixtures now. But yeah, I think Pickford is still a really good choice to have. And I do quite like him for the double game week and give that double extra coverage for Everton and just hope that they keep a clean sheet against Leicester and potentially against Liverpool as well. We'll see. But yeah, I think Pickford is so far the best goalkeeper to have in FPL. And then we have Fabianski as the 14th pick, like the second goalkeeper to have. You see the fixtures are awful, but you're not going to play him anyway. You're going to play Pickford in those game weeks. Maybe the Brentford home game, you play Fabianski over Pickford away to Palace. But other than that, I think Pickford has a chance to keep a clean sheet against Brighton. The double game week is a no-brainer, especially with the Leicester fixture. And then Man United at home as well. They could keep a clean sheet despite conceding a lot of goals to Man United last time. So Fabianski, again, he's just there as a backup. We know now, like, people needed confirmation with Areola on the bench last time. I knew already that Fabianski was going to play because he's just been so much better than Areola for West Ham, and I think West Ham are going to move on and get a new goalkeeper next season. But for now, Fabianski is the surefire number one for West Ham. You're not going to have to worry about him losing his place, I think, for the rest of the season. And he is a playing goalkeeper for a pretty cheap price, so he's still the best backup goalkeeper to have, basically. But again, backup goalkeeper isn't that important because you're going to use your starting goalkeeper most game weeks anyway. So yeah, Fabianski comes in number 14 for that reason, even though he is basically a mainstay in the weekly wildcard draft series because he's such a good backup goalkeeper to have. And also, we also have triple up on Newcastle players. So Dubravka, who's like a decent differential option currently. Yeah, he takes up a Newcastle spot, which we don't want as well. So yeah, we want Fabianski over him as well. So Fabianski comes in number 14. And then at 15, this was the late addition to the squad. And it's sort of, obviously, it is affected by the 22 points he got last time. But unlike the first hat-trick he had this season, which was penalties, which is less reliable because you can't really know when to expect penalties, but it is a bonus obviously that he takes penalties because yeah, that is always a plus in FPL. But apart from the penalties, he did manage to score 3 goals away to Newcastle last time from open play. That is super impressive, and he has also played more offensively and played sort of as like the number 9 or at least as the furthermost forward player for Bournemouth since Evan Nilsson and Enes Ünal got injured long term basically. So I think that could be indicative of what Kluivert does in the future. He could play as like a de facto striker and on penalties from midfield for a price of 5.6. So that seems like too good to be true almost. But the thing is I'm still like a bit uneasy. He has scored the majority of his points in like very few game weeks this season. He's blanked for so many game weeks in total. I don't have the exact numbers, but most game weeks he has blanked so far this season. So he's not like a surefire player in general, but I think the upside with him potentially being in a different role now and being more offensively minded in the absence of the strikers that they have out with injuries, I think there's some really high potential here with Kluivert, so I quite like him as the final pick of the squad. I actually had Amad Diallo as like the final pick of the squad for the same price for a little while because I thought he was going to be the best option, but just looking into it and looking into the needs for this team especially as well, seeing as Bournemouth are a team that could potentially still play in Game Week 29 and still have a double in 33, I think Kluivert is just too important to have, and I don't want to need to do that transfer of Amad to Kluivert in the future anyway. But yeah, both those players, as you've seen, are quite explosive. Amad Diallo got 20 points and then Kluivert got 22 points the week after. But I've landed on Kluivert as the final member of the team and the final member of the midfield in this instance. Obviously, Semenyo is also a really good player from Bournemouth. I think he's also going to be a bit better as a pick with the strikers being out for Bournemouth. We saw already that they are still going to be a really good team without the strikers. But Semenyo is a bit more expensive as well than Kluivert, so I couldn't really afford him. And Kluivert is on penalties and potentially could have that more offensive role now without the strikers. So I prefer Kluivert, and he comes in at number 15. Still unsure about him, but I think it's worth a punt, especially if he is going to continue playing this way that he has done the last 2 game weeks without the strikers in place. So yeah, he comes in at number 15. So that concludes the squad of 15 players. And we have Pickford, Trent Alexander-Arnold, Kerkez, Kluivert, and Gakpo. 5 new players since last time. That means 5 players have dropped out. Some of them are quite good players as well that I don't feel too good about dropping out. But there are a lot of good options currently in FPL. Some good players have to be left out. And now I'm going to talk about them and why they have dropped out, basically. So let's first go into number 6 pick from last week, which was Chris Wood. That was mostly for the Southampton game. We expected him to be really good in that game. Could potentially be a good captaincy pick, as some people mentioned. And in the end, it proved that he was actually the best captaincy pick, or at least the highest scoring captaincy potential choice last game week. He got 12 points for Nottingham Forest against Southampton. Kind of lucky to get the assist, but it was an assist at least. He touched the ball for the first points that he got in that game, and then he scored again, as he always does. He is so consistent. He's so good, but the fixtures just aren't there anymore without the Southampton fixture for me to pick him. And especially with Gakpo getting a double game week, Mateta being in super hot form, Isak being such a good player in general, and someone that you need to have in your squad, there just wasn't enough room for Chris Wood. But he's still a really good hold. I don't think you should sell him if you currently have him. I wouldn't do Wood to Gakpo or Wood to Mateta as a standalone transfer. But on a wildcard, I think it's worth it to go with one of the other players. But yeah, you could triple up in other ways with Liverpool. You don't need to have Gakpo. He's still not like 100% sure as a player, but I just prefer him with the fixtures that he has, especially the double game week. I just think it's a better pick than Wood, so he had to come in, and I can't drop Mateta either because he's in the form of his life. Not really, because the form of his life was last season, but he is back to his best, basically, Mateta. So yeah, there's just no place for Chris Wood. And the same goes for Anthony Robinson in defense. Had the Leicester game last time around, which was really fruitful for him, as always. But now the fixtures for Fulham are a bit tougher, and you sort of just have to move him out on a wildcard. But again, kind of like Wood, I would not sell Robinson if I had him in my team and as like a standalone transfer, especially if you have a lot of value tied up into him. I really wish that I just kept him all season. I had him for game week 1, sold him on the wildcard in game week 6 because Fulham had some tougher fixtures. And then I sort of wish I had kept him. But now he's like 5.1 or 5.2 even at this point of the season. He's a bit more expensive. So if you don't have value tied up into him, I would think it's better to leave him out of the squad if you are wildcarding now. But he's still a fantastic option. Yes, they have tougher fixtures now, but they will get better fixtures in the future. So there's a good case to be made to keep him. But for now, I think Kerkez is just a better pick for the long-term future if you're wildcarding, especially this week, and you don't have the wildcard later on in the season, basically. So yeah, Robinson drops out as well. Then the next two players, Konate and Fernandes, I actually had swapped it with Trent and Ahmad. It's basically kind of the same price. I haven't exactly made the math there. And then I made a late switch of Ahmad Diallo to Kluivert as well, because I just prefer Kluivert slightly. But the extra money that we get from selling Fernandes, you can use to upgrade Konate to Trent, who I think is just a much better pick, or like a better high upside pick at least. And I have him as number 4. So Konate just had to drop out for another Liverpool players. We have maxed up with 3 Liverpool players in Trent, Salah, and Gakpo. There's just no room for Konate. And I think Trent is just a better option in general, even considering price, because he is more good offensively and stuff. And also Konate has been playing with painkillers lately. He is a bit of an injury risk. You can't really trust him for the long-term future either, especially for the next 3 game weeks. Who knows what's going to happen with him? There's a lot of matches for Liverpool, not only in the league, but in the Champions League, in the Cups, everything. So yeah, I just trust Trent to play and not get injured more than I do Konate. And also he's a higher upside pick. So yeah, Trent comes in rather than Konate. Fernandes dropped out because, yeah, Man United just aren't that good. Amarim said that they are like the worst Man United team of all time, basically. They're playing like it right now. So Fernandes is still a good pick. I don't mind him. I have him in my own team. I might sell him for Gordon this week. That is potentially my move. But I still think he's good. He still gets chances every game. He's still the penalty taker for Man United. He's still involved in much of what they do. He has been involved in 17 out of the last 18 goals. It's been either Fernandes or Ahmad getting the goal or the assist. So both of those players are pretty good options despite Man United struggling. But I think the price is just too much for Fernandes at this point to have him in the squad. So yeah, he's dropped out as well. And then finally, Sells dropped out at the goalkeeper after playing against Southampton and not even keeping a clean sheet in that game, conceding twice against Southampton. Yeah, just had to drop him. Pickford has the double game week. It makes sense for me, and that made sense as a transfer or a change on this weekly wildcard draft team, basically, for me. Finally, after now having gone through the players that I've dropped since last time, we have 3 players that are on the cusp, 3 players that I did consider for the team but didn't include for some reason or another. Let's move into those 3 names. First and foremost, up front, we have Jan Wissa, who I think is also a really good striker option now for Brentford. He's also been linked with Nottingham Forest, which is kind of interesting. But I think he's going to stay with Brentford, and I think Brentford especially is also a really good team to pick up players from game week 25 onwards. So Wissa could easily be someone that I pick rather than Gakpo in like 2 game weeks from now. But for now, I just prefer Isak, Gakpo, and Mateta. But Wissa has been providing really good underlying numbers this whole season. Brentford are still a really good attacking team going forward in the season as well. Wissa has been a really good pick whenever he's been fit to play. And he's fit to play now has some good fixtures pretty soon. And I think he's a really good option that you should start to consider now, especially both him and Mbeumo are players that you could consider pretty soon in FPL. Amad Diallo, I mentioned him a couple times now already. He was really close to making it. Originally, I had Amad Diallo as the 15th pick and Kluivert as the on the cusp player. But I just changed it last minute because I think Bournemouth are better long-term than Man United are currently. But Amad Diallo, fantastic. He scored 20 points in that game week 21. He is a guy with such high upside, but he does play for a pretty bad team, Man United, who have like not the best fixtures. So I just prefer Kluivert long-term, especially with the wildcard in mind. But again, I think Amad Diallo is more than capable as a good pick, and I would not sell him if it required just a standalone transfer and I wasn't wildcarding as I do in these videos, basically. And finally, Gabriel Magalhaes, as always, just gotta mention him as a defender. He is still really good. Arsenal haven't kept clean sheets lately, but we know how good Arsenal are defensively usually. Their underlying numbers are still really good. Gabriel is still the biggest goal threat from set pieces in the whole league, basically. Among all players, so maybe not Chris Wood, maybe he's better, but the corners, especially Arsenal, are just so good at them, or have been good at least previously in the season. But yeah, Gabriel, goal threat, the assist potential, the clean sheet potential, just makes him someone that you just have to consider all the time. And again, someone that I wouldn't sell if I had him in my team and I had to use a free transfer to sell him, basically. So yeah, he's the final player there in the team. I hope you enjoyed the video. It's a bit of a long one because I haven't been making videos the last 2 days, basically. I was really tired yesterday because I'm still recovering from a broken arm. It is mostly fine, but when I go to sleep, it's a bit tough to get to sleep sometimes. And yesterday I was just way too tired to make a video, so I had to postpone the video I was going to make that day. And I made a video now, but I'm still trying to do 5 videos this week. I haven't been able to do them as much as, or as quickly as I wanted to because of my lack of sleep. But now I'm pretty ready to do 4 more videos by the end of the week, because I made 1 video earlier with the managers of the week chip strategy things, and now I made this video, and that leaves 3 more videos. One of them is going to be the FPL School podcast, and I'm going to record later tonight with Kevin, and that's going to be posted tomorrow. And then I'm going to do basically like a recap of the last 3 weeks for every single team, and just look at the best players to target from each team and which teams to target as well, which teams aren't looking that good currently. And then I'm also going to have, as always, the team selection video for Friday when I talk about my own team and look at a potential free hit team for this game week and stuff as well. The usual thing, if you are used to this channel and I've seen a couple of videos already, you know what to expect in that video. And if you don't know what to expect, I think if you at least are still watching this video, if you liked this whole video or like watched the whole video and stuff, especially, please subscribe if you haven't already. That'd be really nice. A like, comment, all that stuff to help me in the algorithm would also be really nice. I have a person now commenting on every video just like for the algorithm, which is really appreciated. I like that. So keep at it. Keep helping me make more content. I'm gonna also make sure to make more content going forward, and also going to try to update a couple things as well, potentially, and have some more things added for the videos. Maybe some more content eventually as well along the line. At some point, I'm going to make more content, I think, as well. But yeah, subscribe, like the video, all that stuff, and I'll see you next time. So thank you for watching as always. Bye-bye. Good luck and have fun.